Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now, we are joined by Refracted Curvature, Neil, Arthur, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Yeah, let's get it on.
Morning.
Good morning.
Serve Jerry.
Everyone wants to join the call? Oh, it's Adam. Just let Adam in and then we'll do a bit of housekeeping. Hello, Adam.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Oh, before you do housekeeping, you got to serve Jiren and that whole crew their divorce papers.
That's okay, let's just explain something to you, Neil. When you're dealing with somebody that's... Let's divide the conversation from Jiren. I'm not suggesting this example is him, right? As you've just brought him up specifically. Because we were discussing this in the pre-show. When you identify... Let's use a more general example for flat earthers. NASA. Once you identify NASA as a liar, you've got a couple of choices. You can keep knocking on their door, serving them papers and shouting from the hilltops with ballads and picket lines, and you can do all of that stuff. Or you can walk away. Now, does walking away, Neil, involve leaving a letter on their door? Or does it just involve walking away? Oh, well, that was brilliant. Glad I asked.
Sorry, I hit the disconnect button instead of the mute. Yes, you could just walk away and that acts as divorce papers. Ignore them. That's what I mean.
Right, but there are no marriage papers to annul, Neil. There are no divorce papers. Let's just fill the audience in, because this is now becoming in conversation that the audience is unaware of. My suggestion over yesterday's show was that when we fight with David Weiss or Jaren, or let's pick someone we don't typically fight with, Eric DeBay, all we're doing is moving along nicely with a controlled opposition narrative and a way of keeping us fighting amongst ourselves rather than fighting the actual enemy. Now, if we happen to disagree with the rigged game that is Flat Earth, that is to say you arrive in the subject through conspiratorial avenues, only to find conspiratorial evidence on the table for something that is matter of fact. So the way to make it seem stupid is to make sure that the people who perpetuate the information are conspiratorial in the first instance, and the information they've got to peddle is garbage. Because then people, based on a credibility assessment of the person giving them the information and the garbage level of the information they're getting about Flat Earth, will come to the conclusion that it's a load of conspiratorial nonsense, and that what they have been indoctrinated with from birth is still true. That is to say that they are on a globe derived from measurements of a flat plane. The actual argument is far more simple than the maybe out on the Kobayashi map we've got puddles of land with the controlled rulers of our existence living there in Hawaii-like climate. Maybe there is, but that sounds crazy when you could just show people how Earth is measured flat and how the Keplerian orbital motions are derived from that flat plane. The moment you appreciate that, just no other argument to be had. Talking matter of fact. Your orbits are derived from flat Earth elevation angle measurements to stars. That's it. Earth's flat. That's how it's measured. Your globe came from that measurement. What more do you want? What's that? I could talk about the beast system and 9/11. And then people will think I'm a nutter. Well, we have to divorce ourselves from the nutters that have been in the rigged game that we have also been in. Let's not be beating around the bush about our involvement with the feast of nonsense. There's plenty of stuff we've all spewed up from that feast, isn't there? We're not purely innocent in this. Nevertheless, some of us have identified the game, how it's rigged, and have been pointing it out to the people around us, how that rigged game operates. And we've been braced against. They've gone, I don't want to see how this game's rigged. I'm doing all right in the rigged game. Okay, well, I want to step away from the rigged game, right? I was annoyed from the moment I got here with the conspiratorial nonsense of Mandela effect and clone centers. That's why I landed here with, and I'm like, there's something not right here. And it's been the same ever since. So it's time to step away from the table. Fold. I fold in Flat Earth because it's a rigged game. What's that? You're not a flat earther. Earth is measured flat. There's no need for me to identify as anything to point that out to you. What's that? You think you're on a globe? Well, it came from a measurement of the reality we stand on. It's flat. Well, you are a flat earther. You can pigeonhole me however you like. But what I see a flat earther as is a person in a rigged game peddling nonsense so you don't get to the truth of how Earth's measured. Flat. Those sorts of concise statements about Earth being measured flat are 1,000 more times effective than talking about the beast system, or the Kobayashi map, or the azimuthal equidistant map, or the dome, or the lights in the sky, or the thousands of miles we claim they are above, or hotspots, or Coriolis effect, or Earth curve. None of those things serve anybody any good if they just want to know, what's the dealio here? You say it's flat. It is. Here's how it's measured. See how it's measured flat? Here's how they take those measurements of a flat Earth and imply orbital motion with them. See how your globe that you believed you were standing on came from the measurements of the actual flat plane we stand on. You don't need me to give you my opinion on 9/11 now, do you? You don't need my opinion on the transgender agenda now, do you? You don't need my opinion on Mandela effect, do you? Earth's just measured flat. No opinion, no query, no science, just facts. That's how it is. Move on with your day. There's a lot less excitement to be had in the fantasy of a flat Earth when you realise it's just measured flat. You no longer have to concern yourselves with the powers that should not be in the NASA deception when you just know it's measured flat. It's a lot less sexy, but hey, this is an educational channel. Be educated. Earth is flat. We don't need any of the nonsense that goes alongside that notion of a flat Earth when we can prove it's a flat Earth. So the rest of the crap that goes alongside this subject, as Neil puts it, I would prefer to divorce myself from. Now, to divorce myself from it requires actions, not words. It doesn't require papers or notifications. It's action-based.
Yeah, and the action is we do nothing.
We do nothing to concern ourselves with educating our compadres who are in a rigged game. I have attempted to educate Dave and point out how the game is rigged. However, if you are perceivably doing well in the rigged game, you may not want to relinquish the rigged game. It doesn't matter that you're pointing out that everyone around the table's a cheat if you've got 4 aces. I'm not stepping down, I've got 4 aces. Hey, it's a rigged game. You got 4 aces because they gave them to you. Nah, I got 4 aces. Okay, well, I'm done. Bye. I'm walking out the casino. See you later. Don't need to give any notice.
That was a good illustration. I like it a lot.
Okay, let's do a bit of housekeeping, although we are 10 minutes into the show now. What haven't we done so far? Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, or psychology?
Well, what's a hypothesis?
Scientific prediction. It establishes your supposition of cause for an effect you have observed in nature. It also contains the antithesis of your prediction. That is to say, your prediction will not cause the effect you are studying and attempting to elucidate the cause thereof. So a hypothesis has an alternative. If A, then B. That's your supposition of cause A, and the effect you are studying, B, and the antithesis. If A, not B. That is a scientific prediction.
They could predict when there's going to be an eclipse, lunar or solar.
What about it? To establish the cause of an eclipse, lunar or solar, would mean you established and varied that which you suppose caused that effect. Varied it and induced it. How many times have you seen anybody vary anything to induce the effect of an eclipse? Ever.
But they make predictions and it happens, Nathan. Come on.
Fallacy of division.
They show you on a calendar.
Fallacy of division, because the predictive aspect of a hypothesis is suppositional in nature, yet to be validated. Can't be taken as positive because you have both the positive and negative in the scientific prediction. A will cause B.
You're not being open-minded.
My bad. Go on, Neil, off you go. Obviously, in the middle of my concise demonstration of how this is a fallacy of division, interrupted your thought.
You're not open-minded enough.
Thank you, Neil. That was really helpful when I'm trying to educate the audience. No, to say that you have made predictions would be to say that you have predicted what may or may not cause an effect. To say that simply because you've made a prediction offers up some sort of scientific validity is wrong. To go through the method in full, to the point where you vary and manipulate that which you suppose causes the effect in your scientific prediction and it causes the effect, is empirical validation. Merely having one aspect, predictability, does not make science. So no, Neil.
Yeah, but they
Hello,
think
guys.
it's science.
Oh, I mean,
Does my sound good?
yes, lots of people think things that, yes, you do. Lots of people think what they do is science. So in the pre-show, we covered Jordan Peterson, who is a psychologist and goes around professing to be a scientist, which he is not. But lending credence to what you say or study, mathematically, statistically, or otherwise, has a better ring to it if you say it's science. Now, Jordan Peterson's great for decrying other people's quasi-science when they do their quasi-tests and fulfill their quasi-predictions. He's all the happier to say, that's not right, that's been proven wrong, that experiment they did. But yet the credence was lent when they called it an experiment, just like he has the same credence lent to his claims, often based on statistical analysis, as being science. That's where the dupe has succeeded with the ball, telling us that the science for a ball, well, it's the same science that's so easily overturned by Jordan Peterson when he talks about the quack science of psychology, when he's discussing gender reassignment or something of that nature, with his psychological opinions and his statistics, that he will label science and decry others who've done the same. Neither have any empiricism. There is no science for a globe in this instance, but plenty of people think there is science, which is to say they think there is empirical proof, when in reality there is neither science nor proof for a globe. The only inferred proof for a globe has come from measurements of a flat plane.
So is it safe to say that really everybody needs to be re-educated on what science actually is? Because the world is falling into pseudoscience. That's why we're in this predicament.
We've led ourselves down that path, though. So Jordan Peterson thinks he's a scientist. Is he a liar? No, he thinks he's a scientist. Was he not trained? What a science... Yeah, all of us were. If we've been through a Western world education, we understand what science is and how it offers empirical evidence. That's what it does. Elucidates the cause and effect with an empirical methodology. Empirical, meaning proof. Very useful if you want to claim that what you've got as a psychological opinion, for example, is proven to be true. Well, how so? Well, science! This consensus-based opinion that we all agree on? No, it's not. But it lends a lot more weight to your statement, doesn't it, Neil? That's what people have done, because they've realised the magic trick. Moving on. Any evidence of a molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
That's funny. I don't know. That strikes me funny.
Alternatively, any evidence of the R value measured on a flat plane. 80 people watching already. Thank you for joining us, all of you live viewers. Please share the show if you've not done so already.
what would you accept as evidence for a molten iron core?
I don't set the standard. It's not my claim. You present it and I'll critique it.
Well, they say that they do like some sort of, it's like a sort of like a sonogram that they do on a woman, but they say they do it on the Earth, and they have proven through Earth sonogram that there is a molten iron core. And if it freezes over or somehow ceases to be molten iron, the core, we're dead.
Those
It's going to be
pulses,
gone.
what you do with those pulses, the primary and secondary waves, is measure the return angle with respect to a horizontal plane of reference, Neil.
Oh, dear.
Earth needs to be flat to measure those angles. Any evidence of R? Who's Turtle
How
Productions?
do they know it's molten iron?
Hello, Turtle Productions. Who's that? Anybody? Anybody know?
Hey, what's up, Nathan? It's the Hammer.
Oh,
What's up,
hello.
bro?
What's up, Primer?
What's up, Neil?
What would I accept for R, did you say? Or what would I accept for molten iron core? What was the last question? Well, how
No, my question was like, how do they know it's an molten iron? Like, if any indication that it's actually molten iron.
Because they made it up themselves.
So they have no thing that they're basing that claim on.
No such thing as no thing.
Yes, there is.
Told you, P waves and S waves, Earth sonogram.
Off a flat
Yeah, but
plane.
how do that data? How does that lead? With besides them always having it wrong, where does the molten iron actually come into play with the data?
It doesn't. I just told you, they made it themselves. That's why.
Which group of people made that original decision? Like, yeah, let's make it molten iron. Who decided that?
Who cares?
Who's
Does it matter?
That's what I'm
responsible?
wondering.
Shout out to
Who's
Michael Jones,
responsible?
who just sends a hot dog. Thank you for the super chat. Does it matter?
Well, I think what Arwen's trying to say is, what's the need of a molten iron core? Why would they say that? Why would they make Earth have a molten iron core?
Again, who cares? Does it matter why they put in it? I mean, it's fascinating folly to find out the origins of the rhetoric. If we didn't know why Venus was assumed to be the same size as Earth, we'd be like, well, who said that? And then eventually someone looks it up and finds Huygens and goes, well, it's Huygens that says that. Well, aside just being able to put a name to it, who cares?
Yeah, but now we have Huygens and Copernicus and all these people to specifically point at, like, yeah, that's where we got that nonsense conclusion from. Who made up the freaking molten iron core? Why can't we point at anybody for that nonsense?
Because you can't exactly Google that. Who made up, as in arbitrarily plucked out of existence, this idea of a swirling molten core in a disc-shaped measurement that's been made spherical? It's utterly absurd, and Google's never going to give you an answer to that. You have to just look through the rhetoric, and eventually you'll find it, like Anthony eventually found Huygens.
Yeah, but I don't get why not that one when Google's even capable of telling me how an apparent non-actual deviation causes something to happen. Why not the molten iron? It just seems out of place. They reference everything, no matter how stupid, nonsensical, and obvious.
Well, with
Why
Coriolis,
not this thing?
there's a juxtaposition to be made, because in Coriolis, there's an effect that could be described to be observed on a turning Earth, Coriolis. It doesn't, so you need to convolute that, because there's something that people can go out and compare and contrast with an actual effect. So when they go, hang on a second, nothing's drifting. When I just toss a ball, it doesn't drift, it doesn't seem to curve away from me. What's going on? So you type into Google Coriolis effect, thinking, I understood this effect. Toss over a ball. I watched a National Geographic video about it. 3 guys on a roundabout. He tosses a ball over the top, and with them on the roundabout holding a camera, the ball looked like it was curving. But with a drone hovering over the top of the roundabout, the ball's obviously moving straight. I thought I understood this based on the National Geographic video. So then you go to wiki online because you Googled it, and it says Earth-based Coriolis, and then gives you a description of something that isn't Coriolis with 15 paragraphs of convoluted, contradictory nonsense that doesn't infer that we have any drift, but infers that there could be one traveling north-south and a conservation of momentum. You're like, what are you talking about? Not actual drift of a ball traveling straight. It has nothing to do with any of this nonsense about a globe Earth. And as you get to the end, if you've got a brain screwed onto your head, you realise that it's all mitigation for why the effect does not happen. Nothing's drifting, as it would if we had a Coriolis effect. So you need 15 paragraphs in Wiki to mitigate that with convoluted, confusing nonsense. Unlike the Molten Iron core. Get to my point.
Right, but at least
I'm
the
nearly there.
Coriolis...
Bloody hell, I'm answering your question. Juxtaposition, I said. Here comes the juxtaposition before you interrupt it. Unlike the Molten Iron core, other than a magnetic field, which they infer the magnetic core has developed for us to experience, there is no physical effects of that which they've made up for you to think might happen or have happen or don't have happen as a result of it being there or not being there. It's inconsequential to your everyday existence, whether there is or is not a Molten Iron core. So beyond the rhetorical story of the Molten Iron core, there's no need to give a convoluted gather screw of nonsense in Wiki to get around the fact that we don't see some effect of a Molten Iron core that we thought we might have, but we don't because we haven't. It's so devoid from your actual existence that there's no need to convolute it. They can just state it outright. They can just make it up. So why is it molten? Because they said so. Why is it spinning? Because they said so. Why is it changing direction? Because they said so.
No,
I mean, all of these things have somebody's
Hold on,
name
Neil.
behind it.
Try one
Why
more time.
not this thing?
One more time, Arwen.
You already explained it. Yeah, it's inconsequential, but I mean, all these other things, some of them are not that consequential either, and they all have somebody's name behind them. And this one is like suspiciously left void of any association of a person.
It's because it's a joke. That's why it's very rarely, when I do the daily housekeeping questions, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, I don't often do Molten Iron core till a Friday because it's a joke. There's nothing in physical reality to claim it's proven. The only thing they do claim with P waves and S waves requires a flat plane to measure the return angle signal. And what else is there to talk about with Molten Iron core? Nothing. When it gets to Coriolis effect, Earth should turn underneath stuff to cause a deflection. Like the stars are claimed to be drifting because Earth's turning beneath them. Okay, well then Earth's turning beneath helicopters and sniper fire and footballs. So what's that? Neil deGrasse Tyson says Earth does turn under footballs. And they do claim in the rhetoric that Earth turns under sniper fire, because that's what the effect is. But they also claim you won't notice. Conservation of angular momentum. All right, well, why would you claim that? Mitigation for the fact it don't happen, perhaps? Then you need to convolute it with another 10 paragraphs.
I guess so. I'm just curious, like, is it known when, maybe this is like a thing to ask like ChatGPT or something, like when did the Molten Iron core claim or idea become first published?
You got the wrong
right?
idea. You got the phraseology of a skeptic. When was the Molten Iron core discovered? That's what you need to say.
No, but that's not relevant. No, but to keep it technical, when's the first publication? When's the first
1929, Inga Lehmann, the Danish seismologist in New Zealand.
I knew it was the freaking Danish. Those bastards. It's all their fault.
Aren't you Danish?
No, I'm Dutch.
Isn't that the same thing?
Screw you, Nathan.
It's hard to get that.
How dare you?
Outrageous.
I mean, Denmark is all full of boring grass and Legoland, and I don't even know anything more about it, okay? The Netherlands is all
boring and windmills
and windmills, and we don't have a Legoland. So
weed and windmills.
Hold on, I have proof.
Well, yeah, weed and windmills, stoners and canals.
Yeah, but we're not Danish, okay?
Okay, well that's.
I have proof of the Molten Iron core.
Oh, yeah.
We got the best bacon
so it's
sandwich
the
from a
Danish
day.
stuff. Cool.
Go on, what's your proof, Neil?
If it ceased to be a molten iron core, there would not be life on Earth.
That's an argument from ignorance
There's
fallacy.
life on Earth, therefore molten iron core.
That's an argument from ignorance in affirming the consequent fallacy. Wow, well done.
I just read it. It's the reason why we're alive. If there wasn't a molten iron core, this planet would be frozen.
Okay, if it wasn't for
This
the pixie
planet,
dust,
you say?
if it wasn't for the pixie dust and unicorn farts, we'd all suffocate. Why? Well, because we're not suffocating. Therefore, pixie dust and unicorn farts. It's a straight up. What is it? Argument from ignorance or argument from silence? There's no proof. There's no evidence to the contrary. Therefore, we would be dead if it wasn't the case. Pretty
You
sure
do
that's
the
an
same
argument
thing
from
with
silence.
gas pressure without containment. You say it all the time. We'd
Listen,
all be dead.
Sorry. Antecedent consequent relationship. You can't have gas pressure without a container. It's a required antecedent. Unlike a molten iron core.
I just read it. If it wasn't molten iron core, it'd be frozen, it'd be dead.
Yes, you can make
It
that as
is a necessary
you can make
antecedent.
that as a baseless assertion and an argument from ignorance. But to declare that if we didn't have the unicorn farts, what unicorn farts? What molten iron core? Well, the one I'm proving with the next statement. We'd all be dead if we didn't have one. We'd all suffocate without the unicorn farts, Neil. What unicorn farts? The ones we'd all be suffocating with if we didn't have them.
Close-minded.
What? Yes, okay, fine. Close-minded me. Right, we're going to get on with the video. So, today we are covering Sky Free. With a whole bunch of subscribers. Big popular channel that I've never heard of. Like all of them that we cover. So, as always, please let this videographer know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a nice polite comment that basically alludes to the notion that we have covered their video in some way, shape or form. Completely cold as we are, I don't know what the video is about yet. The video is called RC Boat Observations 2.0 December 2023. That's the name of the video that we're going to be covering. And I know it's not millions of subscribers, it's thousands, it's 1.96 thousand, so it's a tiny subscriber. Not a massive subscriber, it's not millions. My eyesight. Okay, so definitely let this person know and help them in the algorithm. Leave them a comment. Hopefully they'll do a response. And leave a comment, leave a link to our video. So yeah, help them in the algorithm. Love more so than ever because this is a tiny little YouTuber. So let's get into it and see what's what with this RC boat observation.
Hello, we have another observation to show you. This one took place between 12:15 and 12:45 in the afternoon on December 10th. The air temperature was around 43 degrees Fahrenheit and the water temperature was about 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Here is a look at an approximate scale of the RC ship in inches.
So is this a Flatty video, Paul? It's Paul that's provided this today. You Flatty?
I don't think she says on the video. She's just, giving you the observations without trying to lead you either way.
Okay. Covered back in the very early debates. It's going to get recovered by Tinfoil Hatman. Speaking of which, he contacted me because he was like worried about how concise his presentations were, because loads of people were moaning apparently in the comments, which I did read. And that's explained to him, like, what is it, your third show? You've never done this before? You'd never got the observations before you refined your methodology for doing so. Your first attempt wasn't your best attempt. So what? It's like Tinfoil Hatman, as much as people might criticize how concise or how well he flows when he's on a live stream for the third time, don't worry about it. He'll get better. He's got a personality. There's plenty of people out there that don't, that seem to manage to get by. Now, he may not like it, but he's been compared to Ranty because he went out and got observations similar to Tinfoil Hatman, just nowhere near a similar standard, much lower standard. But the difference is you can tell instantly that Tinfoil Hatman has a personality. The fact that he was singing I'm an Alien with me is proof of that, if nothing else. the fact that he might sound a bit rigid because he's new to doing this doesn't mean anything. Take only the quality of his observations, and the fact that his presentation style is just starting to come out is no cause for concern for anybody. People will pick on it because they've got nothing to argue against the observations with. So they pick on personality and consistency of presentation rather than what's in the presentation. That's standard fare. So if you're out there listening, Tinfoil Hatman, this is a baptism of fire, mate. We have all been through it. You'll go through it and come out the end untarnished. You seem like a strong character. And you've got personality to give. So the development of Tinfoil Hatman's personality will come with time. I assure you all. Look at Arwin, for instance. He was dry as a nun's fanny when he first got here.
He's got a lot of personality, Tinfoil Hat Man. That's for sure. I like him.
Yeah, he just stiffens up when he gets in a live stream and he's got stuff that he's got prepared. And, you know, when you're going through the motions of something that you want to present, you do stiffen up a bit. It'll change with time. Anyway.
I would have liked to heard the John Lennon song he was going to sing.
Maybe. I stopped him. Right, okay. I want to play a bit of Jordan Peterson. It's only going to be 10 or 15 seconds. So we covered this in the pre-show in its entirety. So you've got the full lead up. If you do happen to watch as a member or you're watching in 2 or 3 days' time, just rewind if you're at this point and you want to hear the full bit that we're responding to. I don't know if this is his channel, Jordan Peterson, that is. But either way, I don't think it is. So I'm not going to post a link to somebody who's just robbed his material and edited it for their own gain. But yeah, I can't send you to Jordan Peterson's channel. So I don't know where it is. If someone wants to look it up and post it in the chat, please let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. But you can get a general gist of, like I say, what we discussed in the pre-show now.
Denying their existence.
Okay.
I was denying the validity of the claim that those 4 levels of analysis existed independently of one another, which they don't. It's a false claim. And the reason that the radical social constructionists who are pursuing this line of reasoning, which is completely discredited as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's any better than claiming...
Just for context, he's talking about gender.
That the world is flat. The reason that they're pursuing it legally is because they know perfectly well that they've lost the scientific discussion. I mean, I debated someone on Canadian public television who had the...
Okay, that's pretty much all you need. I'll just play the main section of it again because I rumpused him.
The world is flat claim, and the reason that the radical social constructionists who are pursuing this line of reasoning, which is completely discredited as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's any better than claiming that the world is flat. The reason that they're pursuing it legally is because they know perfectly well that they've lost the scientific discussion.
So, scientific discussion is consensus because there is no scientific discussion. There's only scientific methodology to ascertain the cause of natural phenomena. And that is an experiment. Some words that this man uses to bolster opinion or discredit other people's quasi-experiments that they have claimed to have performed that have been subsequently, quote-unquote, discredited. False claims, you say, yet those claims were put forth to their willing witnesses to their claims as science, just like Jordan Peterson does. Now, this magic trick is a bit outrageous when one pseudoscientist, that would be Jordan Peterson, criticizes other pseudoscientists for their lack of scientific validity and false claims. Both are being backed by claim to be scientific validity. In this case, they lost a scientific discussion. Maybe you don't understand these words, Jordan Peterson. Scientific discussion? No. Scientific validity offered through the empirical method of science. There's no discussion about it. If you've been through the method of science, then you have empiricism to offer off the back of your methodology that you've employed. Scientific discussion is just a fancy way of hijacking empirical methodology for consensus. Now, although we conceded in the pre-show that his use of the word flat earth is just to punctuate his point, to say that people who believe contrary to he are stupid like flat earthers, which makes him fair game when he's a pseudoscientist. A quack.
Nathan?
Yes?
If I may, he has a psychiatric background in the sense that he's like into that sort of thing. And yeah, he's going to say that psychiatry is scientific too. So just so you could get a good look at like where he's coming from.
Really?
So
Maybe
from
as
that
he's
sector.
as he's so keen to point out words and their meanings having definitions, he's currently in a tete-a-tete with his government over their use and forcing of people to use particular inclusive language. Use, not use, but you must use these words, and he's objecting to that. Okay. Maybe he'd like to look up the definition of pseudoscience, because in the definition of pseudoscience, it makes explicitly clear that psychology would be the new science when using a definition, for example, of the use of pseudoscience. There is no cause and effect reasoning put through the methodology of empiricism known as science when it comes to psychology. But yet you can lend all the credence you need to lend weight to what you say if you claim to be a scientist, to partake in scientific discussions, which Jordan Peterson does. No, you are not a scientist. No, you have not validated cause and effect reasoning based on systematic experimentation. No, you have not formulated hypothesis, and you most certainly have not done any experiments. And when he claims, Jordan Peterson, to have partaken in experiments because lots of people have done a group study and then they have performed statistical analysis on a group study, that is not science. When you claim it is science, it makes Jordan Peterson a fraud, because it isn't science. Merely statistical analysis based on group study, not cause and effect reasoning based on a hypothesis, not an experiment. When he uses the word experiment, he instantly becomes a fraud, because he's contextualizing those experiments within his science, which he explicitly states. So he's a fraud. Jordan Peterson's a fraud.
He's upholding the standard, right, for these new things. Psychology, virology, he's all into that. He all thinks that's scientific.
Well, it isn't. Maybe he needs to, as I say, Arwin, look up the definition of pseudoscience. A claim of science that has not adhered to the scientific method is the definition of pseudoscience. If you're going to lay credibility to your statistical analysis by calling it science, by saying they did the experiment because lots of people took part in the group study. No, that's not an experiment. Fraud. If you're going to lend the credence of science to that which has not been through the method, ergo the textbook definition of pseudoscience. But then again, maybe just to punctuate his point, when he steals valor from an empirical method by claiming he's a scientist, he can punctuate that shit by decrying flat earthers. Meanwhile, a flat earther will come along and point out the definition of the word pseudoscience and how Jordan Peterson absolutely meets that definition to a T when he calls himself a scientist and decries experiments and claims that group studies are experiments. No, wrong. Next time, perhaps don't punctuate your point with flat earthers as the stupid ones when you're a pseudoscientist fraud, Jordan Peterson. Not a scientist.
You might get a lot of useful pathological information out of like group behavior. It's not really going to be scientific. It's going to be very off the time, right? Because how people respond psychologically kind of tends to change over the decade as culture changes and everything, right? But I'm sure he's able to figure out how people work right now based on these group studies. It's not scientific, though. It's not going to really last for a century, that information.
Adam studied psychology, and he, in his base understanding of the subject matter, knew implicitly that it was not science. Now, I would expect Jordan Peterson to know that, yet he leans on that magic trick just as much as any other pretender clown that just wants their point to be heard and understood and validated by the masses. And he needs that word. Well, I am now in this industry, says Jordan Peterson, a scientist. That's what he claims to be now. And it's a bloody outrage, because he is not. And he should know better when he's discussing.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
What would be the naturally observed phenomenon in psychology?
That was my question. Yeah.
I mean, you can have plenty of phenomena,
Can't
plenty of them. Behavior, that's definitely natural. Now you cause and affect the shit out of that with an experiment and a null. Let's see how you get on.
Yeah, but can you avoid it being man-made, though? You know,
It isn't man-made. If you're talking about
literally made by the man.
No, you can easily categorize behavior as a phenomena. Easily. But you try and formulate that into a hypothesis with a null, and you will not be able to do it.
Yeah, but if it's driven by an idea of a man, then it's obviously man-made. It's literally the idea is causing that, right? Like only like completely thoughtless behavior could perhaps be considered as not man-made. But as soon as you're going to like, oh, let's think about this and test it, well, your mind is now made that.
No, okay. What I'm saying is you could shoehorn it in as a phenomena if you so desired, and I wouldn't object. That's not the problem. It's not like gravity where there is no phenomena in the first instance. They have to conjure the phenomena. This isn't the case with psychology. I'm happy to call the study of behavior a phenomena if you want to sandwich it in to get around that. And then you go, okay, now give me a validated cause and effect supposition with a null that you can put through the method. That is to say, vary and manipulate that which you assume causes the effect of this behavior so that you can vary it as a researcher with a null alongside it. So that when you vary, it either causes the behavior or doesn't cause the behavior consistently across many experiments when it's systematically validated. They won't be able to reach that standard. That's why it's part of the definition of pseudoscience.
You could, to a degree, you know, with basic social engineering, like, for example, the sex
Not an experiment. Stop.
Cell.
Stop.
You could do that, right?
You could do what? Something that isn't an experiment immediately.
But you just said that you could think of a thing to do within psychology that could be an experiment if it's just clear enough. So,
No,
like,
I didn't.
for example, the sex cell or the death cell, like higher response rate.
No,
Isn't that something you could test scientifically?
No. No, not at all. If you think that you can put... Go on, John. You've been trying to get a word in for a while. I've tried.
The problem with that is you're never going to be able to create the experiment. You can maybe form a hypothesis, but I don't know if I would be prepared to call Jordan Peter fraud. I could call him ignorant, and he's perpetuating something false. As far as I could go with that, I don't know if he's been made aware of what he's saying is wrong.
Okay, but as a trained psychologist, you would expect him to understand, as Adam understands, that it is not science. Adam explained that it was taught to him quite explicitly as not being science. So if he, as Adam has, been trained in the same way Adam has, even though Adam's had a much lower standard of training, I would expect him to know that what he does is not science, yet he leans on it as science and describes quite explicitly group studies as science, statistical analysis as science. Now, if you are acutely aware that what you do is not science, and then you ascribe the word science to statistical studies, that's maths, then you're a fraud, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm more than happy to be challenged on that.
Haven't we spoken before about how some people with a science background only come to that realization after they've come to the other realization that they're walking around on a flat plane? I mean, some of these guys, like, I kind of agree with John. I wouldn't say he's Jordan Peterson is a complete fraud. There are a lot of things that he does talk about that I would agree with, but yeah, I think he may be ignorant of this topic and what type of measurements are out there are the type of thing that he's missing. And he just he does like everybody else does. They all throw flat earth into it. Oh, it's so stupid. Like it's all a flippant, archaic model that they all think it is, right? So some of these guys, I mean, Adam realized that some of the things that were supposed to be science wasn't science, right? I think maybe even QE did. John D. I mean, these guys have to do a whole retake on what science was and what they've been doing, right? So I don't blame Jordan for it, but it sucks that people just throw it in there like it's nothing.
It makes him fair game, though, doesn't it? I mean, if you're going to critique us as being stupid by generalization, stereotyping fallacy, which he has done when he uses that to punctuate his argument, okay, I'm a flat earther. No worries.
Yeah,
let's
I agree.
You take credence from my stupidity, Mr. Pseudoscientist, who definitely doesn't have any empirical methodology to back his studies based on statistics. That's pseudoscience, meets the textbook definition of it. Now, perhaps when you called foul on flat earthers' stupidity, you weren't expecting the flat earther to turn around and point out how what you're doing is pseudoscience. Don't poke fun at a group that you don't know anything about, and you won't have that problem. Say again, Chocolate.
Sorry, Nathan.
No, you're good.
No, and I was going to say, I think that's it right there. They don't realize that, that's the type of thing that they could be responded to with, right? They might just think, oh, it's just flat. They don't realize there's a bigger discussion, even though that would kind of be a category error anyway, because flat Earth is not scientific, right?
Precisely. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. And of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!